Is there any question coming in from the floor? This is your chance to be on the camera. Ask a question from any of these gentlemen who are up there.
Yeah,
now's your chance.
Yeah, I have one question for the folks from Isla. I'm just curious, if of the non-Isla whiskeys, for folks from Isla, what are some of the whiskeys that folks from Isla go for? Is it bourbon? Is it Irish? Is it something else?
It's probably quite a wide selection, but I know since I personally started working with Laphroaig, I started drinking Jim Beam. I like Jim Beam quite a lot. I hadn't tried it beforehand, but obviously when I started with Beam Centauri, I started drinking Jim Beam. But whiskey-wise, I quite like trying just different ones. Just Bulvani, I tried Bulvani a few weeks ago, Glenfarclas. So I like to kind of experiment with them and just don't stick to a certain area.
Yep, I'm basically just the same. I like to just try lots of different single malts, just basically of interest more than anything. I know I've got a friend on Isla that works at Ardbeg. He likes to drink his Jack Daniels. So everybody's different.
Okay,
great, thank you.
Okay.
Guys, what would be the best way for folks? I know you were saying before, Nicholas, about the new distilleries that are going to be opening, and probably going to be lack of people for positions on the island within the distilleries. How did you guys get into working within the whiskey industry? Was it something that you just followed your family members beforehand, or how did you advise younger folks getting into it?
Basically, it's just a lot of it now is based on, well, it's got to be probably the best job on the island, just for security and kind of financially as well. So I think more and more younger folk now are definitely going to try and get into them, and obviously if there's going to be new sites getting built, then it will be easier to get into them. But yeah, my dad works in the industry as well, so it was always something I looked at, because there's not really many folk. There's not one person really that works in the distilleries that say it's not a good place to work. And obviously with in so many in Ireland, it's a massive employer for the whole place.
Well, basically, it can be very hard for the young ones to get into, especially just trying to get them to show their faith in you when you don't actually know much about whiskey, or you've never worked in it before. But they do. They give the young boys a job, and from there, it's I mean, I've never wanted to work anywhere else since I first started working in the distilleries. It's just being on the island, you just kind of gain a love for it. And even when I was driving, I was working alongside. I was interested in what was going on, and I pushed to try and get my job in production. And finally, when I went for my interview at Kilchoman, it was a man. I don't know, surely many of you will know John McClellan, who was at Bunnahabhain for years. So he gave me my first job in production. Sadly, John's not with us anymore, so I'll have another drink for John.
Here's to John McClellan.
John McClellan, yeah. So, John,
I remember that punch recipe we used to make.
John, John showed his faith in me, and yeah, I've never looked back.
And water.
That sounds like a good punch. Maybe a little bit.
Mute your mics. There's feedback coming. Mute mics. Only let the panelists talk, and then when it's your turn to ask question, then open your mic.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow on from Michael. John McClellan was a good guy to give kind of trust, and kind of he looked at quite young folk to give them a chance. As I was only I think I was only 18, but early 20s anyway when I started at Bunnahabhain. And he grew up in Isla. He was a fisherman, and he started at kind of Warehouseman as his first job. So he was good. He was a good guy for the whisky industry as well. And as you say, if it wasn't for him, I definitely wouldn't have got into the industry. But as we said earlier on, I think the job, because you need to have a lot of, you've got a lot on your shoulders within the job. I think you just need to, the distillery managers you need to kind of prove to them that they can trust you, they can trust to leave you on a kind of job for 8 hours. Because obviously there is a lot on your shoulders on shift and a night shift, and all it takes is you to take your mind off a job for 5 minutes, and it could be a disaster. So I mean, some young folk might just be too immature for the jobs, and maybe be told to come back maybe in a year or so time. So I think it depends on you at the time of the interview as well. But I just, sorry, Simon.
It's an industry that rewards initiative and drive. I mean, you look at the likes of John Campbell, who was a lobster fisherman, who started working 25 years ago, just stenciling the barrels in the warehouse, and eventually worked his way up to be the distiller, the manager at Laphroaig. So, I mean, it's good. It's a good day's work at the distilleries as well. I mean,
I mean that's why you need to go in with the right frame of mind. You need to go in. You want to learn. You have to learn. For reasons being, we're sat here today and speaking to everybody, and I mean, it's the kind of you need to be willing to share your story, share your knowledge. I would happily tell anybody anything I know. If anybody wants to know anything, I'll share anything like that. And the whiskies, it's a small community, so and it's a great community to be in as well.
So we've got a question here on the chat. I know pay is not discussed, but do any distilleries offer stock or ownership interest as a benefit?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I know some do. I know there's certain companies that do that.
Are you back now?
Yeah, I know I'm back. Yeah, yeah. My internet cut out. But yeah, there are companies that offer stocks as part of their package. I'll not say which ones, but there are ones that do that.
Guys, we're going to close the floor. The last question is for Ulf. Ulf, you can go ahead and ask your question. I saw your hand was raised. After that, we're going to close the floor and get back to the conversation guided by Simon. So this is the last question coming from Ulf.
Okay, thank you so much. I have questions about malting. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you? Are there any malting facilities that kiln the barley with direct heating? And if so, what's fuel nowadays? And the second question is, if you flavor the barley with peat, do you have to burn sulfur briquettes or spray it with sulfur dioxide to prevent the formation of cancerogenic nitrosamines?
So basically, I know that industrial maltings will use sulfur, but on a smaller scale, I wouldn't say they do, because basically I know that a small kiln probably won't burn much more than a peat fire would in a house.
Yeah, at Balvenie Maltings, it's just a coal-fired kiln that we use, and then I think they do a peat week every year, so they actually burn peat for a week every year, and you've got the Balvenie peat week bottle, which is, it's weird because when you go up to the mash house, it's funny how the smell comes back to you from a peaty distillery to a Speyside one, because a Speyside one to me is much more fruity. But to get back to your question, definitely they do use coal for a fire in the kiln at Balvenie.
Yeah. So the other one basically is just they would use kerosene to run hot water through a kerosene boiler, just to run hot water through a radiator, which then gets the hot air blown up through the malt. So that's the other one that that's the only kind of type that I've come across for drying the malt out.
That's what the Laphroaig is. The Laphroaig's got obviously got your peat fire, and then it's the radiators are just heated from the boiler.
Yeah. So so the peat is basically just when the green malt's moist, you put the peat fire on, and the green malt, when it's moist, will take in the phenols and take in the smokiness, and then once you've done your peatiness, you just put the fire out and put the air on.
So no burning of sulfur briquettes at the smaller distilleries then? Basically.
Sorry?
So no burning of sulfur briquettes or stuff like that at the smaller distilleries and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say in anywhere that I've worked where it was just a small peat fire, I haven't seen it, but where I have seen bigger peat fires, they would be sulfur burnt with that as well.
Okay.
Thanks for the question there, Ulf. We've got a question. Yes.
Yeah, I'll need to go now because I'm need to go to work.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you,
Time
Alan.
to make the whiskey. Thank you so much, Alan.
No worries. Thanks everyone.
What have you got for your lunch, Al?
I've actually got a bit poached egg and toast.
That's it.
Right. Cheers, everyone. And Slanjava, thanks very much for having me.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye
bye. So the question came up: more and more women are taking center stage in the US whiskey scene, both as professionals and consumers, and it's been a great boon to the community in general. Does being a woman in the whiskey industry on Isla pose any unique challenges, or does anyone even notice on Isla, given the prominent history of the legendary Bessie Williamson at Laphroaig?
This one's for Nick, maybe?
I know there's one or two women in the production side now on a couple of Isla distilleries, but I know it was for years harder and harder for the women to get into production. I'm not sure why that was. If it was just kind of what happened in the olden days, but I don't see why there should be any difference. As you say, I think females can do just as good a job as a man, so I don't see why they can't get into the production side. But it was definitely something that was like you probably wouldn't see a woman production operator, but there is two now on the island, so maybe it's something that'll change in kind of years to come. I don't know if you got that.
You there, Nick?
Yeah, I think we heard all of it there, Nick. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that's going to get better, and I think we'll see more women in the industry in the next couple of years anyway, for sure.
Yeah. Well, especially if the new sites are opening up and you're struggling to get people to operate them, it's definitely a good thing that they're bringing women into the industry. Like Nick said, I don't see why there has been any reason for it just to be a male thing. But yeah, it's good. I know the people that have taken on jobs and they're enjoying it.
And certainly we've paid tribute to the women of the industry with our latest bottling at Laphroaig, the Bessie Williamson, which is the travel retail 25-year bottling, recognizing her contributions to the whiskey industry, not just for Laphroaig, but also on a global level. She was a whiskey ambassador and traveled the world and helped promote whiskey in general, and of course Laphroaig itself. The question has come up about the Fesh bottlings. What's happening to the bottlings? Wondering, what are we doing for the Fesh bottlings this year?
It's not a question I would know much about, to be honest with you, because I'm not actually there for this year. But Nick, would you know anything about that?
I haven't heard anything on the fish bottles. I've seen there's a couple of the distilleries going to do their fish days now online. So I think there's a few of them now doing. I don't know if it's the same kind of idea as this, but they're going to be doing tastings and kind of events on their kind of set days. But there's been no mention of the fish bottles as I know.
I do know that the Laphroaig will be bourbon with a port and a wine finish to it. So combination of port and wine finish.
Sounds good.
Are they still getting released, Simon?
They are being released. They'll be released a little bit later just because of the shipping issues.
Yeah.
That going back to the last question, there was could we have Emma's perspective on the women in the industry?
Emma's coming in.
Wasn't expecting this.
Emma, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. I do think, sometimes you do kind of get dismissed because you are a woman. But I've started doing some shift work at the Maltons, which has been absolutely great. And I am hoping to do some shift work for Kilila and Lagavulin as well. But currently I'm just kind of doing tours at Kilila and Lagavulin. But definitely doing a lot more production side of work at the Maltons, which is fantastic.
Thank you for your perspective there, Emma.
We know what else to say.
Well said.
And Peter AF Aaron is asking, will the US be able to buy the fresh bottlings? Yes, they will be available. They will probably most likely be arriving a little bit later on these shores than past years. Again, just shipping's been pushed back a little bit. So let's chat a wee bit about the stills. Certainly the distillation, the size and shape of the stills, between what we've got at Laphroaig versus at Glen Garioch, two very different style stills in terms of production as well. You're 5 days on and then you've got the weekend off, correct, Michael? Whereas yep. Nicholas, you are working the distilleries up. Well, let me clarify that we are actually on shutdown right now.
Yeah.
But when we're up and running again, it's 24 hours, 7 days. How does that affect the spirit shutting down and restarting versus 24/7?
Well, obviously, when you're shut down for the weekend, what you have is not just at Glen Garioch, anywhere. You would have a inconsistency of kind of washback fermentation times. You know what I mean? So basically, the difference being is your washbacks. You would have, say, ones that were fermented at the end of the week would have to sit for longer over the weekend, whereas the ones that were fermenting at the start of the week would be distilled in the same week. So you've got ones that would be sitting for, say, 60 hours, and then the next ones, the ones at the start would be sitting for about 90 hours at the start of the week, and then the ones you distill at the end of the week would be sitting for roughly about 65 hours. So basically, it will all go into the same tank at the end of the day. If you understand what I mean, it'll all go into SRWV and mix together. So I wouldn't say there was much difference at the end of the day, but at the end of the week, it's still got the same consistency every week, because it's not done as two different batches. If you understand what I'm saying.
Right, and that would kind of speak to also the different size stills that we use, spirit stills that we use at Laphroaig. We're producing two different style spirits, but ultimately it's all going into the spirit safe and being married.
Yeah.
I think as well, obviously, because we run 24/7, it's kind of probably less pressure on any other equipment, like i.e. the boilers. I think you find a lot of places that start up and shut down again for weekends tend to have a lot of problems with their boilers and whatnot. Maybe not firing back up when they're starting back up on a Sunday evening. So I think I know we find when the boiler's on and it's just constantly running all the time, it seems to run better than switching it on and off all the time.
No, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So
right. Did the the question was, did the Scottish government shut down the distilleries due to COVID? Well, it was actually the UK government that shut down. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. So basically, I don't think that the production of whiskey is seen as an essential. So I think they've taken the step just to kind of look after staff. So
well, the group that's on would argue that Scotch is definitely essential for life on this planet.
Scotch is the only thing getting me through.
I'll just head back to work then. Sorry about
that. Yeah. In terms of yearly production for Glen Garioch per annum, what are we currently running at, Michael? Do you know?
I wouldn't actually know, to be honest with you. I've not long actually been on the stills there, to be honest with you, Simon. So you would probably know better than I would there. I mean, I could sit and work out, but I need to get a bit of pen and paper. But,
I think we're at capacity at a million, but I think we're around 700, right?
I think we would be slightly more than that, maybe. But you're probably right. We'll go with your estimates. Sorry about
that. But you've got two spirit stills and one wash still. No, the other way around. Sorry, two wash and one.
There's two spirit stills there and one wash still, but one of the spirit stills doesn't run. So we just use one and one.
Right. And the other still. Question was what size?
What size is the spirit still at Glen Garioch? The charge is roughly about 13 to 14,000 litres, just depending on what you yield. So you might get a bigger charge sometimes. And the wash still is 20,000. Can hold 25, but we charge it with 20.
What do you think are what's one of the biggest factors that is affecting final spirit during a run? And that could be during it could be during the wash, it could be during spirit run.
Well, one of the biggest factors in the taste, or the biggest kind of thing, the thing that could change the taste the most would be your where you cut the spirit, because the character changes as the run goes on. So basically, if you run your spirit for longer, you're going to get a much heavier, kind of slightly faintier spirit. So you don't want to run too far into your faints. It's the same works with your peaty, with your peatier whiskies. If you were to use a heavily peated malt, but you have a higher spirit cut, your peat doesn't actually show itself until kind of further down the run. So if you don't take your spirit run far enough, you're not going to get as much peat as you would want in the final, in your final spirit. So if the likes of maybe Kilchoman may use the same phenols that Ardbeg would use, but because they've got a higher spirit cut, it wouldn't be so predominant in the final result, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
So if you leave your spirit to run for longer, if Kilchoman left their spirit to run for longer, they would get a much more peatier spirit.
I think also the length of time you fermenting in the washbacks for as well will definitely have a knock-on effect in the spirit as well. I know we were kind of 52 hours with Laphroaig, so if anything longer would obviously fall in line, it's going to have an effect in the spirit as well, going through the stillhouse. Definitely fermenting times.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on wooden versus stainless steel?
I've only worked with stainless steel, to be honest with you, so I wouldn't really know the difference with wood. But apparently there is a difference if you ask people with the wooden washbacks. But if you ask people with the stainless washbacks, they'll say there's no difference.
I think the only difference is the wooden washbacks look better. They look more as kind of traditional.
Yeah, they definitely look better. I'll give it that.
Do you have a favourite tipple yourself for when it comes to the whiskey?
Yeah.
Mine would be Bunnahabhain 12.
Aye, so mine is actually also a Bunnahabhain 12. That's what I'm having a dram of just now. I need to watch myself. My bottle's getting a bit low down. I'll need to get a new one ordered. Yeah, so Bunnahabhain's actually my probably Bunnahabhain 12 will be my favourite drink. Anyone else want to add theirs? No?
Yeah, it's 12. You gotta have the 12.
I've got it's within the closest bottle within reach right now is this one right here. That's a nice one as well, and that harkens back to the earlier days when Glen Garioch was still doing peated. Any plans, Michael, for peated Glen Garioch again?
Well, I'm to be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that we have a peated malt bin sitting there, so anything's possible, I would say. I think they generally do a peated run every so often, but I've not actually been there long enough to see that. So, so I can't really add any more to that, I'm afraid.
All right, yeah.
We've got more. Just quickly jumping in, going back to the cuts. I don't know if everybody on the call understands the different cuts and what happens if you cut late. It's also a question from Ulf. So if any of the Stillman who are here can talk about like what are the different cuts and what happens if you miss your cut, like that process, that would be great.
So basically, the cuts are you've got to be consistent for your final spirit profile, if you know what I mean. So if you want your parent spirit to be the same, you basically the start of the run will just be done by time. So your 4 shots will just be done by time. So you need to get all your kind of impurities out of it first. You need to make sure you're just pure. You've got all your alcohol. So once after your 4 shots is done, you come on to spirit. So basically, it's important to watch that run. You need to make sure you need to know your time. You need to, when you come on to spirit, you need to know your strength. Is it strong? Is it weak? Do you know what I mean? It gives you a gauge on how long the spirit run might be, because you're coming down to a certain percentage. So you might start higher. You might get more than the last run, depending on how much alcohol you manage to get in your washback. So when you watch your spirit run come down, you need to make sure you get your cut, because the character changes constantly, if you know what I mean. So if you miss your spirit cut and you take it down too far, you're taking the faintier kind of off notes into your spirit, and you don't want that, because it's... Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, so Michael, your 4 shots at Glen Garioch and then your spirit run, generally, what are the times on those, and then your feints?
Basically, your running times are about 10 minutes for the 4 shots. You know that's you, and then your spirit running time is usually roughly about 2 hours. So that you can use time to gauge, but you can't just go by time, because things can sneak up on you constantly. So you genuinely need to check and make sure, check your strength, make sure it's not coming down too fast, because the last thing you want to do is go to check it and you've missed your cut.
And Nicholas?
Yeah, our kind of spirit run is generally around about 5 hours, 4 hours 55. We've got one of the longest foreshots, 45 minutes. So that's quite a long within the industry. I don't know if there's any other distillery that has it for just quite as long. And then we're on spirit for 2 hours 15. Our runs are generally always the same, but as Michael said, you have to check the most important ones, that second cut of your spirit, depending on the temperatures. So you're constantly keeping an eye on the hydrometers for your temperature and your kind of readings. But generally, the spirit run is it's on spirit for 12 hours 15. And then it goes on to faints with an hour 55 to 2 hours. So our full runs generally about 5 hours for spirit run.
Aye, so basically our run is 2 hours, and then our faints would be 3 hours. So the whole run is roughly about 5.5 hours.
And what kind of flavors do you get from the Fusel oils if you cut late?
You just kind of get your kind of off notes, tainted, kind of heavier, kind of fainty smell. You don't want that, and I mean, it probably would be fine in the long run, but for consistency, you don't really want that.
I know that we had a challenge with Laphroaig last year when the boiler shut down, and we'd had a batch of malt that had been laid down, and I know that we got creative with the way we dried our barley. We went back to the old methods of using anthracite coal to dry the barley. Are there any other times when you've been working where you've kind of resorted back to the old methods of distillation and production, that relying on the skills of the older traditions to keep the distillery up and running?
No. Luckily, since I've been working at the Laphroaig, not much has went wrong apart from the boilers. And obviously, once the boiler's off, there's not much you can do. But as you said there about the malt barns, there was definitely, I wasn't in the house at the time, but the spirit was definitely coming through the spirit safe with different kind of notes. But as you said, I wasn't in, but no, it definitely had an effect on the spirit anyway.
I would say that kind of the only kind of thing we kind of you go back to or old style was maybe casks. If you had, I remember back at Bruichladdich years ago, you would get a lot of leaks, and you would have to get the read out and go and fix a lot of casks, go and patch them up and hammer bits of reed in and just make sure that try and stop the leaks and things like that. So. I mean, cask work maybe for me, not production anyway.
Sorry, just when Michael was saying there about casks, I know that when I was at Bunnahabhain, every week we would go around the warehouses and they called it tapping. So you had your wee wooden hammer and you'd have to tap every barrel. And back then it was the lead patches. So you had some putty, a piece of paper and some lead, and you had to tack patches onto the barrels. But I don't think they do it anymore, as it was contact with the lead was affecting the whiskey in the barrels.
Right. Yeah, see a lot of barrels coming out of Bunnahabhain when I load them with the lorries with the lead patches on them. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what sort of bung floggers are you? Are you a good bung floggers?
The best bung flogger about. I can ping that bung up and catch it.
For folks that don't know, a bung flogger is one of those large wooden hammers that when you hit on the side of on the top of the cask with the bung will, to Michael's point, pop up. If you do it right, it'll pop up. So that's what. How many bungs can a bung flogger flog if a bung flogger could flog bungs?
It was one of these things that you would kind of show off with. If there was a tour in, you would get the bung flogger out and go and crack a bung, ping it up and just catch it with the other hand, and then just walk away very coolly.
Do you have a favourite Isla food?
Well,
I know what Nick's going to say here, and I'm going to say the same.
Well, I was going to say venison.
I knew
it's not an Isla food as such, but the local deer, obviously red deer in Ireland, is probably one of the best meats you can get in the world, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, between venison and clams. I like my scallops.
Well, the scallops are very good too. The Isla scallops are brilliant, and paired with the whiskey, just amazing.
Yeah, really good. I'm not that keen on oysters, though, to be honest with you. I'm not that keen on oysters. Anyone else like oysters?
Got a lot of oyster fans out there, I think.
There's a lot of there's actually a lot of well, anywhere in the world is the same, but on Isla, I do a lot of I do a bit of hunting as well. So like I eat rabbit, pheasants, partridge. So I eat quite a lot of kind of different meats, and they're all very, very good and definitely their own way.
And of course, the Laphroaig cheese is a fantastic cheese.
Yeah.
There was a question about hand sanitizer. Are the distilleries that are making hand sanitizer using the heads for the hand sanitizer or the hearts?
Hey, that's a good question. I couldn't actually tell you. I think the hand sanitizer needs to be quite a high percentage. So
I would say probably the heads. I would have thought.
Aye, they must be. It must be the triple distilled. Aye, so it must be the heads.
So, do you, in terms of the Isla whiskey industry, who are the people that stand out historically, or even today, presently, that stand out for you as really setting the bar and really bringing the best of Isla to the table?
I would say probably every single distillery manager in Ireland has got to be kind of up there, because they're all kind of the kind of main person in each company, and as soon as you mention whatever Isla distillery, it's kind of every manager's kind of noticed right around the world. So and they're all very different and good at very, very good at what they do.
Yep, definitely. But I mean, you've got different people, but basically, what the ones done at Bruichladdich when they bought the place over, Jim McEwen and his investors, what they done, they set a bar back then. They done it at the right time as well, and they took things further. And then when they started to do the gin as well, that was another step. So they raised the bar quite a bit, and obviously it's kind of set the kind of fan club for Isla a bit more as well, if you know what I mean, past the whiskey as well, for gin lovers too.
And of course, we mentioned Duncan, who you worked with back in the day. There's certainly the list goes on, whether it's Bessie Williamson or Ian Henderson or
Yeah.
Thompson family, the Ardbeg. They really do set the standard, and it is about maintaining the traditions that have been passed on from generation to generation. Favorite places to visit when you're outside the UK?
Outside the UK, favorite places to visit outside the UK. I don't know.
I was supposed to be travelling to Sicily in July, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to come off just now. But yeah, I like to travel about, but I quite like to stay in Scotland as well. There's a lot of Scotland that I still haven't seen that I would like to see.
Yeah, I was hoping to do the North Coast 500 this summer, but obviously I'm not going to manage that. But I went to Singapore and Bali last year, and it was amazing, unbelievable. The sunsets weren't quite as good as Isla's, right enough, but.
Any other questions out there from the group chat? That was a comment from Ulf. During mashing, the second temperature is set at about 75 degrees. Is it because? I'll be clear on this. Sorry. During mashing, the second temperature is set at about 75 degrees. Is it because of the lager starch molecules dissolve at the temperature, or is it for another reason?
Well, it's 75 degrees. Basically, it's just to if you don't want it too hot, you don't want to kill your enzymes. So yeah, it's basically, it would be for that reason, I guess.
Very good. Tom Kreitzberg's asking, any concern with all the new distilling going on, how the meaning of Isla whiskey might change?
There's quite a lot of locals putting that point across as well, saying that will Isla be Isla in the next kind of 10 years if there's going to be another 2 or 3 distilleries opened up, because it was always just the kind of very, like, you knew Isla for the kind of 7 names or whatever it was at the time, but there's a lot of these kind of smaller companies coming on now, and a lot of folk are just worried that they're just jumping onto the kind of the Isla name rather than doing it for the Isla. Obviously, because Isla's been on the whiskey map for such a long time now, they're maybe just wanting to follow on that kind of bandwagon and have the Isla name rather than do it for the island.
And when is the best time to visit Isla, or what's your favorite season? The comment from Dan, he says he's been in March and April and he appreciated it was less crowded than having it been led to believe it is in the summer.
Yeah, it's probably right. Summer just the kind of summer season now is stretching as well, because it was always kind of from like after Easter right through. But you're definitely finding the visitor centres now are just as busy in kind of September, October, whereas kind of back 10 years ago it would have been a lot quiet going into the winter, but it's definitely getting busier all year round now.
Yeah, I found that before I left. Yeah, there was tourists there seemed to be all year round, compared to what it was before. But I mean, it's not a bad thing. There's never a bad time to come to Isla. There's always a good time. So
I would just say for accommodation, if you look at in the summer the accommodations, a lot of it's usually fully booked. Whereas if you tend to come maybe earlier in the year or later on in the year, there's a bit more variety for accommodation.
And as an additional question to this, what are your thoughts on the idea being considered about extending the Fesh week to 2 weeks?
I personally think it would ruin it. I think the way they've had it for the past few years I think you're putting a lot onto the tourists at Gwent Island trying to get them to stay for 2 weeks, because I know it's a very, very expensive time of the year. and to expect someone to stay for 2 weeks is quite a lot of money, and it's asking quite a lot of folk, because I know when they come into Isla, they put a lot of money back into the island. So I personally think a week works well.
Yeah, aye. So, I mean, the problem they've got is that there's that many places that want to have their open day, that there's not enough days. And then people are finding they're having to travel from one place to another because there's two things on in one day, as opposed to just being able to go somewhere and enjoy that day and then go home. People feel like they're missing out on things, which isn't ideal either. But as Nick says, the money point of view, you can't expect people to come over for the whole 2 weeks, but people should still deserve to enjoy the full experience.
Do you have any favorite toasts?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
A toast.
Like a favourite kind of
toast.
All right, Slanjava. Obviously. Sorry.
Yeah, how do you like your toast, Michael? Do you like it with?
Aye.
Brown or white?
You could have jumped in there and saved me, Nick, but you just left me.
No, leave you.
And what's the feel? It's perfect segue into the next question. What's the feeling like between distilleries? Is it friendly or competitive?
No, it's definitely friendly. Like I know there's a few times we've maybe a breakdown at Laphroaig, and you just go up to one of the neighbouring distilleries to see if they've got spare parts, and everyone works together. I mean, I know it's different companies, but on the island especially, everyone works kind of very close.
Yeah, I would say it's always been a friendly atmosphere. It's a great industry to be in. Not only that, they tend to do a lot of charity stuff together as well, community things and stuff. So, yeah, it's definitely a friendly feeling.
Well, that's a great tie into the Isla Resilience Fund. Just a reminder for folks, we mentioned it at the top of the conversation, but we are the Isla Scotch Society is helping to support the Isla Resilience Fund. Go on to GoFundMe, and they are raising monies to be able to help support Isla residents in time of need during this coronavirus. So if you're interested, you can go on to just Google GoFundMe Isla Resilience Fund. Certainly where it does get competitive is on the pitch, the football pitch. I know the matches between Bowmore and Port Ellen can be fairly fierce, yes?
Yes.
Football. That's
Soccer,
football? I'm confused.
Yes, football, yeah. Soccer, yeah. Me and Nick both played for Port Ellen as well. So that's your current team, Nick, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not played for a while now. I'm getting old. No, the football, the football side of the island was always quite good, but just with kind of times moving on, a lot of the younger ones now seem to be kind of stuck in their Xboxes and the kind of games consoles. But now there's quite a bit of sport on Ireland. I played rugby before. Isla got their own rugby team, so we used to try and get off the island as much as we could to play kind of teams over in Kintyre, up to Glasgow, and also there's a lot of folk play golf as well. Obviously the Mackie's just been newly developed, and it's a kind of big kind of focal point in Ireland as well. It's a stunning building now. I think the golf course I'm sure it's in the top 100. It's definitely the top 100 in Britain anyway, I think. But it's they put a lot of money back into the golf course as well in Ireland.
And Nicholas, you've also got the beach rugby tournament as well.
Yeah, the beach rugby's been running for, it must be near it's definitely 12 years anyway now. That was organised just as like a small event. Over the years, the kind of different distilleries have sponsored it. Lagavulin sponsored it early days. Bowmore sponsored it, and then Bruichladdich had it for a good chunk. They must have had it for kind of 8 or 9 years. Bruichladdich were phenomenal with their sponsorship for it. But it got bigger and bigger every year. There must have been close to 200 folk coming. There was kind of 20 teams travelling from all over Scotland, down south in England. There was a few Irish teams, a couple of Italian teams, and it just ran on the day in June. But last year we thought maybe we kind of ran its course a wee bit, so we decided just to cancel it for this year and maybe start back up again in 2021. But obviously with everything that's come on, we probably took the right decision in cancelling it. But no, it was good for Ireland as well, because a lot of the kind of local businesses had their stalls, and kind of obviously we like to give back into the kind of community as well, so it's a way for them to make money.
And the Isla distilleries are a great emissary for Isla, but we would be remiss if we did not also mention the Isla pipe band.
Yeah,
world-class pipe band.
Yeah. Actually got a lot of friends that play in the pipe band. They enjoy their travels, they enjoy their drinking, and they're very good. It's Kilchoman that sponsors the pipe band. So when I was working there, we heard a lot about them. I don't know if Nigel, he's a pipe major. He works at the Isla Hotel in Port Ellen. He's a very good guy. A good local man.
It's the time they put into it as well. Like because they do their practicing in Glasgow, so when it comes up to competitions, they're away every weekend for months leading up to a competition. So they put a lot of kind of time and effort into it. And I think they've I don't know what grade they're in now, but they've either been upper graded, and it's kind of quite high competition now for them. So there's having to put in even more practice.
So boys, you've given me an idea now for the next virtual session. Maybe we have your Isla pipe band on and do a virtual concert. That would be great. We did one of our tastings here in DC with the bagpiper playing his pipes, and that was amazing. So anyhow, it's a great. Maybe I'm gonna follow up with Michael, see if he can connect me with some of his friends who are in the pipe band.
I'm sure I can manage. If they see this, they might run a mile, but they'll be fine, I'm sure.
So we got a question from Alex Remington. He says, as Islamen, as Elachs, who've worked at distilleries all over Scotland, to you, what makes Isla whiskey unique in Scotland?
Well, obviously it's a big region, but basically the amount of distilleries on one island. Do you know what I mean? For the size of the island, it's a lot of distilleries. The friendliness of the place as well. Do you know what I mean? Just when you go to Isla on the ferry, it's a magical island. So basically, it just speaks for itself, and it's got a lot of followers. So it's
even in the past.
Nicholas, if you come off the screen, we'll be able to hear you better. If you turn your screen off, yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even in the kind of the difference in tourism in the past 10 years just shows you how much, obviously, the Isla whiskey is loved right around the world. There's not many places you can go to in the world that there's not a bottle of Isla malt behind the bar. So I think that kind of speaks volumes.
It really does say something, and I know with as small an island as it is, for when you lads travel the world and to see a bottle from Isla, it's quite a badge of honor and distinction and it really does speak to the work ethic and the culture and the history of the island and the people of Isla, to maintain that quality for the last couple hundred years, and with the new distilleries coming online as well. I mean, the old distilleries certainly have set the bar, and it's not something to be taken lightly. If a new distillery is coming on the island, it's got a lot to live up to, given the history and the quality of spirit that's produced on the island.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard. I mean, Kilchoman came onto the scene, and they've done a very good job actually of fitting into the whiskey kind of background. Anthony and his sons, they obviously had a go, and yeah, they've done a very good job of it. But the way they set the distillery up was they had a kind of challenge. They needed to create a good whiskey and fast, basically, because if you lay a lot out on the table, you can't. You need to try and get it back in as quick as you can. So they basically just set, the whole plant was set up, and the way they cut their spirit was all set up to produce quite a light spirit, a really light spirit that would advance a lot faster in the casks. So what they did was they played it really well, and they've produced quite a good whiskey at quite a young age, I would say. So whether Ardnahoe and the rest of them can do that as well, that remains to be seen. But it's not all plain sailing. So these places aren't up and running properly yet.
Hey guys, this is we're getting towards the end time. 6 o'clock. We said we're going to end the session, and we have to be also careful of the time difference in where Scotland. So towards the end, any final thoughts and questions you have for the two Isla boys who are left, or Simon? This would be the chance.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, the one thing I have to say, and I have to just go on the record and thank Michael. Back in 2015, when I was visiting Isla, I was at Bruichladdich, and I took a photograph in front of his the Octomore tanker. I think the truck or lorry, whatever you call it. And and he was there. I did not say hello to him. I did not know who he was, but I remembered his face, and he showed up on I'm friends with Mary on Facebook. He showed up on her feed, and I kind of sent him shamelessly a friend request and followed up with all kinds of questions like, hey, would you be open to talking to you? And Michael was very friendly and gracious and open-heartedly, offered to talk to us, and also brought on his friends. It's thanks to Michael that we have this conversation. And the beauty of it is that he connected us with his childhood friends who we grew up with on Isla, and we were able to get this insight. Along the way, obviously, I connected with Simon. So Simon, a big thanks to you for moderating this. I think without you, this conversation would be not the same. So you being the moderator and helping us guide the conversation and asking all the right questions, I think you did a tremendous job. So just want to say a big thanks to Michael, Nicholas, even though your Wi-Fi, Nicholas, can be better.
That's Isla Wi-Fi.
Isla Wi-Fi.
He's still on dial-up over there.
And Alan, I think Alan added a tremendous value. And I mean, we didn't get to talk much about Alan's father, but he's if you just Google, I ended up Googling Alan, and I saw his father's picture. I'm like, okay, is that Alan? Because that cannot be true. That's too good to be true. And so I think overall, just wanted to make sure we recognize and appreciate the work these boys put in, working at the distilleries. we go to these distilleries, we visit them, but sometimes we don't get to talk to them. We ended up talking to the master distiller, and we obviously meet with the brand ambassadors, the global brand ambassadors, and what have you. And I just wanted to make sure that we, acknowledge the hard work these guys put in on the behind the scenes, and that's what puts the whiskey in our, I guess, bottle or your glass. So big thank you, Michael. Thank you, Nicholas and Alan, who's not here, and you guys are awesome. I can say this for everybody in this group. We love Isla. We love the people, and we want to make sure we do whatever we can to support the ELOCs or even the whiskey industry. So on Isla. So that to me was the whole purpose of arranging this conversation. Just to make sure that you guys are appreciated, because sometimes you don't get the credit.
No, but thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. It's been a great experience for me. I've never done anything like this before. I was slightly nervous, I'm not going to lie. The whiskey definitely helped. But yeah, so thanks very much, and it's amazing the support that all you guys show for the whiskey, and that's also appreciated.
If I might just say thank you to the Isla Scot Society for giving us the forum to be able to jump into this and join this conversation. It is Isla Scot Society, but certainly two of the Isla boys are now working on the mainland. So if you're up in Aberdeenshire, definitely stop in and say hello to Michael at Glen Garioch. And you've got an inn at Kinninvie with Alan. I'm not sure how many tours actually go through that distillery, but you've certainly got somebody there as well to support if you're interested in learning more about Kinninvie and that operation.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for having us, and we look forward to enjoying all of these whiskies. And to Michael's point, I think we've opened up an opportunity for something like this for future chances to have these kind of conversations. If you enjoyed this, with a nod of your head, let us know if you'd like more of these conversations, because we want to do it from our company's perspective, and certainly from your from the clubs and the societies. It's a way to bring us people together when we can either afford to fly or we just can't even leave our house.
Yep.
So I'll offer a toast, one last toast from me, and it goes like this: to the cause that needs assistance, to the wrongs that need resistance, to the future in the distance, to the good that we can do. Slàinte.
Slàinte.
Okay, great. So thank you, everybody. With that, I think we're gonna end our virtual conversation, and I'll be working on my next event, and I'll be working with Michael and Simon and anybody who I can find who can connect me to Isla to bring more of these conversations where we can get to listen to the folks who actually work there and work hard to produce good whiskey. So with that, I say goodbye. Thank you, everybody. And we'll be putting up this recording. Hopefully, Adam, we can figure out a way to put this huge video recording up on our page so that people can view it when they run out of Netflix content. But it'll be there, hopefully.
Cheers, everyone. Slàinte.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, Slàinte.
Bye-bye.
See you now. Bye-bye.
See ya.